Hi, everybody, and welcome to the 2024 State of Distributor Sales, brought to you by Distribution Strategy Group, produced by us, actually. So my name is Ian Heller. I'm with Distribution Strategy Group, and this is my colleague, Brian Hopkins. Brian, how are you today?
I'm excellent, my friend. Long time no see.
I know it's been like minutes.
Like minutes. It seems like forever.
Oh, that's so sweet. Good. Well, I tell you what, we got a terrific show for everyone today. I think this is, man, the 12th or 13th year we've done this, and we're constantly doing research on distributor sales. So we just did a survey. We're going to show you a lot of results from that, but we're also going to share with you things that we learned from the survey and things that we learned from other work that we do. So if you want to learn what's going on in distributor sales and where distributors are going with how they manage the sales function, you have come to the right place. So let's get started. Before we get into the content, we got a little business to do. The first thing we want to do is tell you about a subscription product that we offer distributors called Demand RX. Now, this is a phenomenal tool if you want to do things like estimate potential for a specific account, estimate potential for a prospect account. If you want to understand your wallet share, your market share, know how to go into a customer and talk to them about specific categories that they maybe should be buying more from you. We have an incredible amount of data. It's not just a report that you get. There's a whole portal you can go into, and you can set it up around your product categories and your segments and your geographies. It's very powerful. It's become very popular with many distributors. So if you're interested in learning how to use DemandRx to improve and supercharge your sales function, reach out to Jonathan Bein. That's JBEIN at distributionstrategy.com for more information. We're delighted to welcome to the stable of Distribution Strategy Group sponsors our new friends at Intershop. We are really happy to have Andy Stannis here to talk to us about Intershop's value proposition. So Andy, please take it away.
Thanks, Ian, Brian, for the introduction. Happy to participate today. Great to be here. You know, earlier this year, Intershop joined Distribution Strategy Group at one of Chicago's largest distributor events, and we found a lot of companies dealing with shifts in the industry. Oftentimes, though, they lack the right solution to address those changes that might include customers expecting a buying experience similar to what they enjoy in their personal life. Call it the Amazon effect. Manufacturers bypassing traditional distribution channels, selling directly to consumers. There's more competition than ever, right? Things like marketplaces like Amazon would put even more pressure on already razor-thin margins and increase that risk of churn. And let's not forget the growing impact of AI, which I'm sure we'll hear a lot more about. Next slide, please. At Intershop, we recognize these challenges, provide an e-commerce solution that boosts online sales, efficiency, and customer care. Our clients were fortunate enough to have Bunzl, Sonopar, Highline Warren, Shark Ninja, and others. Some of them have worked with us for years and are still growing because our platform is designed for the complexities of B2B distribution and wholesale. Next slide, please. Intershop manages the entire digital sales process, everything from bulk order to customer-specific prices and catalogs and promotions. We can also do quotation for real-time inventory management and support your workflows. We integrate with your existing ERP or CRM, what have you. Intershop provides everything you need to run your business and a modern storefront experience, which makes it easy for your customers to find your products and buy them. Next slide. So whether you've experienced an e-commerce solution that maybe fell short, or you're just exploring options for the first time, I encourage you to reach out. a.stanis@intershop.com. We'd be happy to talk about your requirements and see if we're a fit for you. Thanks for listening. Back to you, Ian.
You bet. Hey, Handy, real quick before you go. So we do a lot of research around this too. And what we've discovered is that there's a whole bunch of shopping on distributor websites that doesn't go through the shopping cart because distributors will like email in POs or call in orders. And as a result, we think distributors, and we're going to talk about this later, under measure their website benefit by about 600% on average. So, wow. Our message to distributors is if you think your website's not driving any business, you're probably just looking at your shopping cart and you're probably measuring it entirely wrong. And in fact, you really do need a full-fledged e-commerce site because that's how customers want to shop, even if they place the order through another channel. So this is important technology for distributors to consider, and Intershop should be on your list if you're thinking about upgrading your site.
Yeah, very true. I mean, omni-channel was a phrase for a long time, and that implied offline too. So thanks,
That's
Ian.
right. You bet.
Great.
Thanks, Andy. All right, great. Now I'm delighted to welcome Jalen Ramey, and Jalen is going to talk about a Data Extreme. Jalen, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks, Ian. So for over 25 years, Data Extreme has helped our customers be more successful by leveraging their SAP infrastructure, enhancing the experience for customer interactions and order payment processing. We build world-class end-to-end order management and point-of-sale solutions on emerging technologies specifically designed to mitigate those customization pieces. Our flagship product, Almost Plus, is a sales execution and order management platform ideally suited for high volume, high touch, and complex sales. Next slide. So Almost Plus streamlines complex sales and order processes in real time across all of your sales channels in one platform directly within SAP. So counter, call center, mobile, EDI, web, text, and more. And this really allows you to put an entire ecosystem of technology into one consolidated view via Almost Plus. Really think of it as your 360-degree view of sales and order management, or like an order management hub. Next slide. So what's the value of this? So streamline complex business processes, the ability to automate manual sales processes, leverage AI and machine learning to deliver document automation, material matching, and advanced search capabilities, receive up-to-date pricing and availability across all of your channels, transact in real time and deliver real-time inventory and visibility at every location, as well as optimize cross-sell and upsell opportunities, and much more. And all of this data is presented in a very easy to use and very intuitive interfaces that reduces that employee training time by as much as 90%, is what of our customers say. So if you're interested to learn any more, you can find us at dataextreme.com or reach me at jramey@dataextreme.com.
Yeah. Hey, Jalen, before you go, so I'm on the board of a major regional electrical distributor, and I remember we had a board meeting, sort of working with a bunch of the employees and getting their input. And what we heard from them, probably the number one piece of feedback, was we need a faster and better way to enter and manage orders through SAP. And so we put Data Extreme in touch with the CIO there. We've now installed the product, right? And people love it. I mean, it not only solved the problem, it delighted them in the new capabilities that they have. So I can personally tell you that this is a great product for anybody who's running SAP.
Absolutely. Thank you so
Great.
much, Ian.
Thanks, Jalen. All right, Brian, you ready to get down to it?
Let's get after it.
Let's get after it. Okay, so the first thing, we got several sections here. We got, so quite a bit of material, but it's really diverse. So I think you'll enjoy it. One of the first things we're going to talk about is sales effectiveness and achieving goals. And so, this data is out of a recent survey. I mean, we just wrapped up this survey a couple of weeks ago. And we asked this question, how's your sales team's performance in achieving goals? Did this surprise you, Brian?
Yeah, I think, the biggest surprise is I think distributors tend to be a little more cautious. So I think the good is leaning just a little bit more like, I think I'm going to hit my sales goal, but I'm not positive.
Yeah.
So I think it tends to be a little more cautious, but the average has really, really surprised me on this one.
Yeah, as people seem a little bit more optimistic than I think we expected to see. Yeah. And when we asked them, okay, so how confident are you in your sales team meeting year-end targets? This also skewed slightly to the positive, wouldn't you say?
Yeah. And again, it goes back to, I think we're going to do this, but I just don't want to come out and automatically say it. So I want to hedge my bet just a little bit.
And they had a specific reason that dominated all the others for why they are concerned. And it is
the economy.
The economy. Right. So, I mean, there's some other things like customer demand, but customer demand and the economy are the same thing. So I think, the predominant factor by far is uncertainty around the economy. Would you agree with that?
Yeah. And I think people tend to take bits and pieces of what they hear, whether it's in the news or whether it's online, and they hear little pieces of it and it tends to skew negative. right? So
Right.
all of a sudden the entire economy looks bad, but when you look at some of the underlying things we'll talk about, I think that's a little different.
Yeah, and it depends on the sector, right? I mean, it
Yeah.
also depends on who you talk to. I mean, Harry Truman said, I want a one-armed economist because every economist I talk to tells me, well, on the one hand, this, on the other hand, that.
Yeah.
And so here we've looked at a bunch of economic data. We're not economists, but we've talked to several. So here's kind of our view. Inflation is now just under 3%. So it's sort of declined to historical norms. We're not going to see that, 1% thing again, probably in our lifetimes, at least not mine, but I'm probably older than most of the people on this call. The job market is resilient. It's new job growth is still there. It's not quite what it was. There was a scare a couple weeks ago, but it seems to be pretty stable. Inventory to sales, which is a big deal for distributors, is right. There's an index for this. We're not sharing all these charts, but I've got them if you don't want them. Inventory to sales is at a very healthy rate right now. Supply chain was hit by some new wild cards. It seems like it's always something. So there's still a drought in the Panama Canal. And so it's limited traffic and it's limited ship size. And they're doing these wacky things like, shipping a bunch of taking a bunch of containers off the ship on one side of the canal, putting them on rail cars, shipping it to the other side of the canal and reloading them. And people are buying out other shippers to get their spots. So there's some crazy stuff happening there. And of course, you've got the Houthis and rebels attacking ships in the Mediterranean. We think there's probably going to be 2 interest rate cuts this year. The first one in September. That's the most common thing that we're hearing. But another wild card in a good way is M&A activity, right? I mean,
yeah.
What we're hearing, our good friend Mike Marks with Indian Rivers said that he's heard there's $1 trillion in private equity capital that's been on the sidelines because of interest rates. And he's expecting a lot of that to start coming back in the market. Now, interest rates have come down. So we think, probably the next 12 months or so is pretty stable. However, federal debt is ignored by both parties. It used to be a thing. Now nobody seems to worry about it. But it's going to catch up with us eventually, right? So
yeah. And I think, distribution leaders are really good at focusing their teams on what they can control. There's a ton of things out here that none of us have control over, but I think executives are really good at saying, let's just focus on us and what we're good at, and we'll start hitting it.
Yeah, because you can't control this stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, very well said. All right. So what changes do you plan to implement to improve sales performance in the second half of the year? What did you think of this?
The sales training obviously shows up because it always shows up, whether it's product training, whether it's, new systems training, but really where obviously the big numbers are at are engagement and customer and marketing activity. So I think we'll talk about this later on in the presentation, but how do we make more sales calls and how do we make marketing more relevant? I remember the days when the marketing people would come and say, hey, we've got an overabundance of safety gloves. Everybody go out and sell safety. And I'm not looking at Ian for that because he never would do that.
No, I would.
But
never
the idea is that, you make this more personal for people,
right?
And I think that's where this is headed, right? Is how do we reach more customers and how do the messages that we send them and give them make more sense?
Yeah, I mean, you look at the top 2 categories and it's reach out to customers more often, right? And I've often said the golden rule of distributor marketing is the more frequently you put offers in front of customers, the more frequently they'll buy from you, and so marketers don't really do that too well. I think more sales calls, better and more targeted marketing, and then, better sales training, these are fundamentals, right? Do these things well, put your value proposition in front of customers.
Yeah.
Okay. We also asked, how do you expect your personal sales strategy to evolve over the next 18 months? This middle answer as number 1 surprised me. Did it have the same effect on you?
It did, but I looked at it in the lens with the 68% focusing on upselling, right? Because data has always been part of distribution. We've always had really good data, a lot of it, but it's always been kind of focused on how do we make the business internally better? How do we pick, pack, and ship better? How do we answer the phones better? All the things that operationally make sense, but now we're starting to combine that with how do I use that data to help us focus on selling better?
Right.
So I think those 2 things are definitely combining, especially now we have systems that allow that to happen.
Yeah. I mean, distributors have so much more data than, for example, retailers do. In fact, I just showed you this article that I wrote that's going to be in the Wholesaler magazine next month, and it's called "Why Distribution is So Sexy." And I wrote that because I get so tired of hearing people say it's not. I mean, it's a great business with all these interesting challenges and complex customer requirements and loads of data, you know, and if you apply analytics and good business intelligence tools and AI to it, you can yield insights about your business that, you know, people in most industries can only dream of getting. And you can make money doing it. I mean, what's sexier than making money, right? And so I think, you know, this ongoing investment in data analytics, whether that's AI based or basic BI tools, or just, you know, whether it's customer data, supplier data, product data, it's really important.
Yeah, I think that's, you see at the right side of this, that's increased focus on the digital channels, right? That makes a whole lot of sense, right? We've got the right data. We need the right tools to be able to put the right things in front of customers.
Right. So our summary slide on this is the top initiatives we're seeing to improve sales performance are, you know, leveraging data analytics, make more sales calls. The sales productivity, big deal for distributors, always has been. Better marketing, sharpen your digital focus on customer retention. We've done webinars on this and how if you manage your customer life cycle, acquire just a small number of incremental new customers, retain a relatively small portion of your defectors, and get one more transaction a year from your current customers, your business can grow like 25, 30% in a few years, right? But we just let them, go ahead.
You know, I've heard for years about the leaky bucket, right? Everybody uses that term, and getting somebody to focus on it, putting the right metrics around it, and organizing the business around that life cycle, I think makes a huge difference.
Yeah. I mean, it's so hard to get a customer. Why would you let them go without a fight?
Yeah.
You know? Okay, good. So let's talk about specific tools that people are using to improve sales effectiveness. And we asked them, what are your current data capabilities? So give us the rundown here, Brian.
Yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense the way it's structured now, because you see pricing, activity monitoring, and pipeline management. Those are tools that have existed for a while, whether it's, you know, pricing tools that are out there currently, or whether it's CRM systems that have been in place forever. You know, those are the activities people are, you know, looking at because it's either happening in the moment or it's already happened. Well, what's interesting to me is the right side of this, when it starts to talk about, you know, NPS tools or market demand tools. Those are the kind of capabilities that distributors need to be able to make proactive decisions about what they do.
Yeah.
Right. So if I want to improve my customer experience, I need to know what that looks like. So I need to take some action around how can I take the data that I have, learn from it, and do something different in my customer experience that helps me grow.
Yeah, I agree with you. And it's funny because, you know, the lowest rated one here in terms of current data capabilities, demand estimate data. Well, how do you know what your wallet share or market share is if you don't have an estimate on what the market size is, which is what this data provides?
Exactly.
You know, I mean, you should have an opinion on how much you're getting out of the total of the territories that you sell into and the accounts that you sell into. So you need to find a way to do this. I mean, you know, we talked about our tool, but there are other methods, and you should have an opinion about what's the estimated demand by account, by county, by state, or whatever. You know, so I think there's an opportunity here because you can't really right size your sales force around your current revenues. You need to have a plan for right sizing it around the potential of the marketplace as you grow your business.
Yeah, and I think
Go ahead.
I think, you know, with the activity level, right, the uncertainty and am I going to hit my sales goal or not, that lends itself to I'm going to pay attention to more what my salespeople are doing.
Yeah.
Right. And I think is the wrong way to look at it. I think we need to provide them more data to be more successful and more effective.
Right. Okay, so this is interesting because we asked them to rate the importance of each of the following tools in terms of their importance or usefulness to your sales reps. And 3 kind of jumped out. And at the top was training. What's interesting about that is it's not apparent to me that people invest that much in training. Am I missing something?
No, I think sales training, like I said, it's been around for a long time. and whether or not that's product based, and that's typically what it is, right? Is how do I teach my sellers more about our product so they're better at it? But I think where it starts to fall short a little bit, and where it becomes more important, is all the systems that you see in the rest of these responses, right? Is how do I teach salespeople to be part of that? And I don't know that we do a great job as an industry teaching salespeople how to use the tools that we're implementing.
Yeah, but I think, but it's good that the importance is there. The one that surprised me
Yeah.
most here was this e-commerce system, because for years there was this old saw that distributors didn't like e-commerce systems because they saw them as competitors. It looks like we're getting beyond that. Do you agree?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've gone very far on this digital journey, and especially in the last 5-6 years, right? I think that the importance of e-commerce systems is coming to the forefront. It's obvious through the responses,
Yeah.
but I think you won't survive. You won't out Amazon, as the saying goes, but you need to
Right.
have an e-commerce strategy that works for you and your business.
Yeah, and CRM is also looking a lot more positive than it used to in past studies. So
Yeah.
professional sellers have warmed up to e-commerce as a partner and as an asset, not as a threat. And CRM, I think there are tools out there now that have become much more account manager friendly. So it's more about giving territory managers data than it is
Yeah.
about putting them into a data entry role. And so I think people have, the industry feels like it's hitting the maturity curve on CRM. Okay. Now, we asked this question sort of from a different angle. And so this is for the tools you don't have. Which ones do you think would be most important to add? And as you can see, a lot of people have CRMs, so they wouldn't have rated this higher because they have them. But e-commerce is the one that's on, and training are the ones that are on both of these, right? So even though they're very important currently, what this tells me is that sales leaders in distribution are saying we need better e-commerce systems and we need even better sales training, even though they're important and we do them today. Is that your takeaway?
Yeah. And I think some of that's the evolution of the sales team itself, right? You're getting a group of individuals coming into the workforce, have been in the workforce a few years, and they don't have that depth of knowledge that a 25-year vet has. So they need more data. They need more sales training than we've ever had to provide in the last 10 years, say. And so I think that's where some of that comes from.
Yeah, and analytics, so customer portal, so that's really just an extension of an e-commerce system. Although it's more than transactions, right? A customer portal may be about, doing order expediting or contacting my account manager or tracking my delivery or any number of things. But that scored pretty high too. What's interesting, I thought, was that predictive sales tool and AI analytics were pretty near the top as well. And so we asked about that. How would you rate your company's effectiveness in using analytics and techniques to drive sales effectiveness? And it was kind of interesting because people rated themselves a little higher than I thought, but they didn't rate themselves great, right? It's almost a bell curve.
Yeah, and I think it tells a pretty, positive story about our industry.
Yeah.
Right? Analytics not too long ago was kind of a new thing in distribution, right? The leading companies were doing this 5, 6, 7 years ago. And now we're starting to see most companies figure out, hey, analytics is going to be really important.
Yeah.
Right. So I think this tells a really good story about how our industry has evolved in using some of the analytics.
Yeah, but I think it's a realistic look too, because it's not like people are
Yeah.
like, hey, everybody
great
in my
at it.
company's, smarter than average, right? But what is not being used, at least according to this set of respondents, is AI tools. So when we asked which AI tools are being used by your team, 2/3 said none. Do you believe that?
I don't believe any bit of that.
So go on. We talked about this. So why don't you believe this?
Well, I mean, the AI tools, I think, are being used by people behind the scenes, right? They may not admit to it up front,
right?
But I can guarantee a portion of your sales team is using AI tools, whether it's ChatGPT or Perplexity, or Gemini, to write emails, write proposals, make things easier for themselves. They're just not willing to say it because it's maybe not behind the firewall,
right?
But they're using them.
Yeah, you know, last week I did a webinar for a bunch of distributors who are in the HVAC segment. I was talking about account planning. And so what I did is I took this fictional data about an account and I like showed their sales by product category and their potential by product category, right? It was all made up data, but it looked real. And then I found a real HVAC contractor. It wasn't the one that they weren't related to the data, but ChatGPT didn't know that. And then I took a distributor, right? And I took a manufacturer of HVAC equipment and I loaded a PDF of all the data and I gave ChatGPT the link to the HVAC contractor website, the HVAC distributor website, and the manufacturer website. And I said, analyze all this data and these different players. I'm a sales rep who works for this distributor. What should be my account plan for this customer? And it spit out, this customer does this kind of work that matches up with this manufacturer's co-op programs. And, it created this whole account plan. Then it wrote me multiple emails that I could send to the account to grow it. And it was like 20 seconds. Right?
Yeah. That's why the teams are using this, right? Because
Right.
it takes what would have been hours before and turns it into seconds.
Right.
And it starts the thought process, right? It's not the final thing that somebody sends to a customer or that's not their plan, but it gives them a basis to start.
Yeah. And by the way, if I had 100 accounts, I could do all of them over a weekend. Right. And
Yes.
because I mean, it would only be a minute per to generate the plans or a couple minutes by the time I put in the websites. But, then I can, fine tune them and change the emails. On Monday morning, I could launch email communications to all of my customers that are targeted based on their likely needs, based on data that I put together and fit into ChatGPT. But here's the threat. All that data is now in ChatGPT.
Right.
And that's why this says 2/3 none of the above, because they don't want to admit that they're using this kind of stuff, right? And so you have to learn how to disguise the data. So ChatGPT now somewhere thinks that this HVAC contractor buys all this stuff that I upload.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's the opportunity, right? Is to
Right.
make sure that as an organization, you provide an avenue for this to happen, that it's secure. Right. Because there's ways to secure that data. You just have to be open to letting people use it behind a secure firewall.
Yeah, and you can actually buy a implementation of ChatGPT that is secure and even one that overlays your data, I believe. Is that right?
That's correct. Yes.
Okay. All right. Cool. All right. So and here's the thing. I mean, these tools have been around, what, a couple of years, So imagine how amazing they're going to be, in 2 years from now. You got to learn this stuff now because your competitors who are using it imagine the tailored communication, the customized targeted communication that a competitor who organizes an effort around this stuff could generate against all their accounts versus someone who's just doing it the old fashioned way.
Right. And that goes back to what we talked about earlier, right? How do you make it personal, right?
Yes.
Sales is always personal, and this is the way to do it.
Yeah. Everything ChatGPT wrote was totally personalized. So, okay. All right, good. So now, related, rate your sales team's overall expertise in using technology to drive sales and productivity. And I felt like these were pretty honest answers. We didn't get anybody to say they're experts. Nobody said they were poor. Everybody said, hey, we're the middle child. Isn't that what you see?
Yeah. And I think it goes to the whole idea of change management, right? We tend to buy tools that make sense for the business. We got a great business case for them. We roll them out in an hour-long webinar and hope that people use them, expect them to use them.
Yeah.
And there's a robust change management that has to happen with any process, right? In distribution, but also with technology, even more so. Because in order for people to use them effectively and make a difference, they've got to be very comfortable with it. So I think it just says, hey, we've got to be better at change when it comes to implementing stuff like this.
Yeah. I mean, when you've got technology experts choosing tools for technology novices, right? And it's not intuitive to the users how to use this stuff. So you have to teach them how to do it. So sales tools summary, most sales teams aren't using any AI tools that they admit to management. There's a strong desire to add missing tools. AI is a big deal, no surprise. We're seeing a rise. I mean, I think we're hitting the maturity curve on CRM systems, on to some degree, marketing automation and e-commerce. And self-service portals are very important, and they're much more important for B2B in general and distributors specifically than they are in B2C. Yeah. All right, so we mentioned personalization. Now let's talk a little bit about it. We just have a couple slides on this. So we asked, how would you rate your company's effectiveness in delivering personalized and positive customer experiences across all touch points? And, you know, it looks like, I mean, good is lower than average. So on average, this was not a great score. People don't think they're offering personalized experiences.
Yeah, and I tend to see it the same way, right? Because we're trying to optimize the channel. We're trying to get the greatest website, and we're trying to get a great mobile app and a really good experience over the phone, but they're not necessarily integrated.
Yeah.
You know, some of the really good companies are understanding that if I started a phone call with somebody and I go to the website, somebody else can see all of that.
Yeah.
And start to be more personalized. And distributors just aren't good at it yet.
Yeah, I mean, I think that what this reflects, that's a very good point. What this reflects is you might have good outside sales experiences. You might have good counter experiences. You might have good telephone experiences, but they're not integrated. They're not driven by a common database, right?
Right.
Which is why nobody ranked themselves very poor, right? Zero did that, but only 9% rated themselves as excellent. And I think you have to have a customer database and some kind of a layer of integration, whether it's a CRM or something else, or, you know, if you're on SAP, OMS can help with that. But, you know, you need to have some kind of, at least you will need to have some kind of integration so that, you know, if someone makes a call about a product and walks into the counter person can pull that up as soon as they start helping the customer, as one example.
Yeah, I mean, it's just one of those things that retail is ahead of the game on with us, right? Is they're pretty good at it, and they've evolved very quickly with it.
Yeah.
You know, in general, right? Distribution gets behind the curve on a lot of different technologies.
Right.
This is one where if we're going to get there, we're going to have to accept that these systems exist, and we're going to have to start using them in order to create that.
Well, it's a much harder problem for distributors, right? I mean, in retail, an account is one person, one credit card, one email address, one physical address. In distribution, you may have an account that has dozens or hundreds of users, right? And different pricing for different people. I mean, it's a much more challenging problem. And so it's not that
no doubt.
You know, distributors are slow-witted. It's that distributors have a harder problem to solve.
Yeah, no doubt.
Okay, so but it is true, we know this from various research that we've done, that, you know, tailored customer interactions do drive up customer loyalty or net promoter score. Personalization will drive sales. You know, the challenges are the data integration and analysis and delivery tools. We're seeing increasing AI tools. And so the availability of relatively low cost technologies is getting better. Do you agree?
Yeah, I mean, I put in a system in 2019, right? That was a predictive sales tool that we used pretty successfully, right? But it was difficult to line up some of the data to provide the right personalization for customers. So it took us some time to get there.
Right.
But and it also goes back to that idea of adoption of tools.
Yeah.
Right. Because we had a personalized sales tool that said, hey, this customer should be buying this, they're not, or they, you know, every 6 weeks they buy this, but they haven't bought it in 12 weeks, mention it, that kind of system. And our inside team really adopted it very quickly.
Interesting.
Right. Because we spent a lot of time with them. They understood the value of it. They understood the idea of personalization. Took the outside guys a little longer to buy in and understand it. Right. So there was a change management thing there. But the idea is that we had an impact on sales because we personalized the experience for people.
Yeah, let's talk about that, because there are differences in outside, inside, and hybrid sales models. And this is all evolving rapidly right now, in part because COVID made a lot of people work from home. And so that gave them new experiences and they developed expertise in things they didn't have before. But, you know, I was just reading this article that Mike Marks published in the Food Equipment Distributor Association's online magazine. And he wrote, to succeed, sales teams need to evolve to become a collaboration between inside and outside sales. And, Mike is kind of the dean of distribution consultants, and he works on this stuff all the time. And I completely agree with him. But for a point of clarity, the term ISR, inside sales, is used simultaneously for managing accounts over the phone. In other words, a salesperson who works over the phone, and it's also used to identify customer service people who take inbound calls. And those aren't the same functions, right?
No, and they can fall into the trap, right? Because a lot of times you'll find somebody who's very outgoing, knows customers really well, knows their business very well because they've been dealing with them for a long time in a customer service role. And you start an ISR, inside sales department, call it, and that person feels like a natural fit, right? We're just going to move this person over to be inside sales. They're going to take that same attitude, knowing our customers, all that stuff that they bring to the service side to the inside sales role, and they fall into this trap.
Yeah,
and the trap is, no, it doesn't work because it's a totally different skill set.
Right.
And what the trap winds up being is they start interacting with customers and their brain turns back into customer service.
Yeah.
So every interaction they have, they're solving a customer service problem versus trying to grow their business. So
I
I've
agree
seen
with
it
you.
happen time and time again.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I'll add something to it. It's not a trainable. Training's not the answer. These people aren't wired to be in sales, and
No.
it's not teaching these people good sales techniques. They're not wired for it. They have this mission of service orientation where they want to help customers. They want to take inbound calls. If you were to try to turn them into an outbound caller, it's going to fail. And unfortunately, almost there's like a couple of percent of people who can do both. And they trick us into thinking everybody can do both. And it's just not true. Right. And so I think, there is this hybrid model for developing, because what I have seen be successful is I know professional account managers who used to spend 90% of their time on the road. Right. And when I talk to them now, they're spending 60% of their time on the road. So if you are a good outbound seller, an account manager who's been traveling, because of your experience during COVID, what you've discovered is actually those sales calls are still really important, but I'm a little bit more efficient if I do a little bit more over the phone rather than on the customer job site. So their hybrid work that was 90-10 on the road in the office is now more like 65-35 or 60-40. And, I think not only is that a productivity thing, but just as a reality, more customers than ever are working from home, and you don't typically make a sales call on a person's house, right? So in my purchasing
agent, a little weird.
Yeah, right. Hey, as long as I'm here, can we have breakfast? But if your purchasing agent is now working from home, and a lot of them are, then you can't make that sales call anymore. So some of this is driven by market reality. Some of it is driven by, hey, they acquired a bunch of new skills. But I think this outside rep who becomes more hybrid is a real thing. Are you seeing that?
Yeah. And it comes down to, again, what do the customers prefer us to be in that role, right? I mean, yes, some are working at home, of course, but then some are working still in office where they just don't have time for a 45-minute sales call.
Right.
They'd rather have a phone conversation, and if it warrants it, they need to come in and talk to the person at more length, and they set that up and schedule it.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of that, again, is driven from the customer's perspective, and not necessarily distributors just trying to, save money on sales costs.
Yeah. And look, you gotta plan your calls. I know a lot of people who to this day, they don't plan their calls. I make sales calls sometimes and we just show up. And the customer's not, they like the person enough that they're like, oh, hi, what can I do for you today? But it's clear that you're interrupting their day. And by the way, calling them from the car 15 minutes in advance is not a planned sales call.
It's not right.
Right. Okay, so let's look at some data here. So for people who have built a telephone-based account management function, so to be clear, this is setting up people to make outbound calls. So they're just like outside account managers, only do almost all their work over the phone. We asked them what are their biggest challenges. What do you see here, Brian?
Yeah, the picking up the phone and calling a customer and doing a sales call over the phone is very different than in person. So I think having that level of sales training to say, here's how you schedule this, here's the right times to call. Right.
Right.
That's something that often gets left out is this is the best time and day for you to pick up the phone and call. It's more likely you're going to make a connection. Right. So those are the kinds of things that are important as you do this, right? It's important that you combine that with the sales tools that you have, right? What's the technology that exists to track that? Right. So there's a lot of gaps there right now that exist.
Yeah. So even if you have the right skill set, you got to
Mhm.
train them. Right. And then the next thing is customer engagement, because you got to get a hold of these people. And that's always been, difficult sometimes. Right. All right. And then we asked, for your sales reps who make most of their calls by phone, so they're, not the same as the traditional outside sales reps, what's their primary focus? I think you had a pretty strong reaction to this, Brian.
Yeah, I mean, yes, the majority have these smaller accounts, and that tends to be the plan, right? That says we have this group of accounts that nobody's calling on. We should because we think we can grow them, and we give those to the inside sellers, and let's see what they do with them.
Right.
So I have a point of reference that says that's important too, right? Because you want to
Sure.
grow that piece of business. But what also has to be considered is how do you take maybe large customers, right? Who you're at the top of their spend. There's not a whole lot of upside to that account anymore, but you need to still have a level of focus and a level of contact. It's time to start looking at those and say that would be better served by an inside salesperson, right? Who can make the level of engagement that you need. And by the way, that's what the customer wants.
Yeah.
And it's not perfect for every situation, but it's one of those things that selling teams need to consider is, are those accounts, should they be handled by an inside person? So your more costly resource is then put at accounts where your upside's better.
Yeah. Or it's a hybrid. I mean, we work with this guy named Mark Peck, and years ago he wrote this book called Integrated Account Management.
Mhm.
And he actually links up the outside and inside account managers. And so, so for example, let's say that I'm an account manager and there's a auto plant close to me, right? Well, there are a lot of people in that auto plant that I need to have relationships with. And by working collaboratively with an inside sales rep, that person can network throughout the plant and find new names for me, for people I can call on, right? Or, maybe that person calls the tool crib person who I, don't know, or they've just changed that person out, and the inside salesperson finds out first. I mean, the inside salesperson as a partner to outside account managers is actually the ultimate model to me. And you work out how you pay the commissions, et cetera. But having this inside sales rep who has their own accounts, but also provides value on very, very large accounts. And to your point, can take over most of the heavy lifting on the large account once you've sort of maxed out their potential. I mean, there's a lot of bandwidth there for an inside sales rep to make your outside sales rep more efficient.
Yeah. I mean, I implemented that exact model in one of the distributors I worked with, and it was very successful because both people knew the account inside and out. They knew everything about it and all the nuances because it was part of a manufacturing process, right? So they needed to.
Yeah.
But it took a lot of that work off of the outside seller and let the inside seller have a lot of that relationship.
Yeah, it's really easy to say the inside sales reps handle the small accounts and the outside sales reps handle the big accounts. And that, like most simple solutions, the messier solution is usually better than the simple, clean one.
Yeah.
Okay, so the world is changing. Let's talk a little bit about adapting to a changing environment. So this slide started out a little complicated, so I simplified it a lot. Please rate the difficulty in meeting each of these challenges when it comes to adapting your sales strategy to the changing distribution marketplace. So what I did basically is I took a major challenge and notable challenge. So if you look at the legend on the bottom, major challenges on the right, notable challenges next to it. Excel absolutely insisted on showing the columns the other way in the graphic. I couldn't figure it out. So what I did is I clearly marked them. So if you look at the ones that actually have percentages in the chart, so if you look at the third one in, resistance to change within the sales team, 6% thought that was a major challenge. 24% thought that was a notable challenge, and it turned out to be our number 2 among all of these when it comes to significant challenges in terms of adapting to a changing distribution landscape. Having said that, that's a very disturbing result, right? That your sales team doesn't want to change. So almost a third of respondents said, hey, one of our biggest challenges, one of our 2 top challenges is our sales reps don't want to change. Are you seeing this in the marketplace, and also your distribution experience is more recent than mine?
Yeah, I mean, this has been an age-old problem with sales teams, because what we've done is evolved, right? The tools we put in place have evolved, our strategies have evolved, and sales teams have traditionally been resistant to that change. And so I don't think this is any different than what we've seen in the last, few years in my experience, but where the resistance now comes in are the tools that are now available that give information that, sales teams are resistant to say, I know everything about my customer. And if they see something that is contrary to what they believe coming from the data, there's a lot of resistance to the data's not right, the data's wrong.
Yeah, right.
Right. So there's a lot of resistance there to combine those 2 things, whether it's the, on the ground intelligence and the artificial intelligence coming together. So I think that's where most of that is coming from now, is the data we're seeing in some of the new tools.
Okay. And it's interesting that the number 1 was lack of sales training. This came up more in the survey than I thought.
Yeah. It doesn't surprise me, right? We talked about, the generation that's coming in needs more, wants more, and demands more. Right. So they're demanding more training on what they're doing, because they don't have a 10, 15 year runway of being in the business. So I think there's more that's being demanded of distributors than ever before.
Yeah. I mean, we have a good audience today. I'd be interested in their perspective, but it's not my impression that distributors are doing more sales training than they used to. And it's hard to get people to agree to take salespeople out of the field. I mean, I know you can do self-paced, self-paced module learning, but it's expensive. I get it, man. Every hour you're not selling, you're losing money, right? But there's also that old story about, sharpening the saw before you start cutting. And it just feels like we need to sharpen the axe a lot more. And then that, even if it takes a few hours out of the field, it's going to make the axe a lot sharper when it comes time to go and, get the work done.
Yeah. I mean, I think you're spot on with all of it. And it comes down to the change management of everything, right? And a lot of things in distribution come down to that, but how we deal with sales reps and how we deal with the challenges of getting them trained and getting them organized with the tools they need is always important.
Yeah. By the way, Mike Marks made another point in that article that I cited earlier from the Food Equipment Distributors Association, and he posted a link to this on LinkedIn. So if you go to Mike Marks, you can see his post. But he said that in the last 4 or 5 years, the number of B2B sales reps has declined. Was it 20%? I think it was 20%. I don't know. Did you read that article?
Not I just saw the headline, but yeah, I think it was 20% that I saw.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. All right. So looking to the future, how do you expect your sales strategy to evolve over the next 12 to 18 months? Number 1 was leveraging data analytics to inform sales strategies and decision-making. Number 2, focusing on customer retention and growth through upselling and cross-selling. Number 3, pretty close behind, was increased focus on digital channels to engage with prospects and customers. So there's sort of this, better use of analytics, more sales calls, and really, if you will, more marketing, right? So this is a very demand focused, let's get out there and get after it. Let's just communicate more with our customers and do it based on data so that we're being relevant to the customers we're focusing on. And man, if that's the strategy, I'm all in.
Yeah. It's funny how that works, right? Is the fundamentals of what we've always done,
right,
still matter, right? It's just the way we go about it's now very different. Yeah.
We got a couple more sections to go through. One's the role of e-commerce. The second one is how sales collaborates across functions. And this is very interesting stuff. And by the way, there's a huge eyebrow raising data point in the collaboration section. But before we do that, let's talk about the role of e-commerce in driving sales. Okay, so how important are e-commerce and digital channels to your distribution business? And a little over half said very important or extremely important.
Mhm.
And, I think this is a misunderstanding of the impact that digital has. I mean, and don't get me wrong, I'm glad at least half of them rated it that way, but I think it's even more important than that.
Yeah, and I think this will continue to evolve to the very and extremely important
Right,
as the second generation of owners start coming in,
right,
right? And digital matters and they understand the digital world better.
right.
So I think that'll start to definitely move more towards very important very soon.
Yeah, and one thing that this slide clearly explains is that I have terrible math skills because I added but ignore that 48% comment. I will fix that in the survey, but it's actually extremely important. Plus, very important was 52%, and then add another 80, somewhat important in the 80s. So there is a high level of importance overall for digital channels, and that is changing, I think, based on what we've seen. But when we look at digital skill gaps, I mean, a lot of account managers don't really know much about it, how to use their digital platforms, because even if they've been trained on it, they don't use it very often. Um, and I know you really like mentoring from internal experts, right, Brian?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's important that you have, whatever tech company is out there, train your teams specifically on the tech itself. When it comes down to using it on a day-to-day basis, there's no greater power in, Ian and I working together and saying, here, we do the same job. Here's how I use this tool. Here's how it helps me. Right. I think that is much more powerful than a vendor coming in and saying, here's how the technically it works. Well, that part is very important. I think the day-to-day function of the tool and how I use it and what I do is even more powerful.
Yeah, I agree. In terms of e-commerce, we looked at Intershop, but the whole landscape of available e-commerce platforms and their capabilities is just impressive now. I mean, there's very little you can't do on, through a state-of-the-art e-commerce system anymore that your customers want. And they're personalized, or they can deliver personalized experiences, right?
Yeah, that's the holy grail of what we've always tried to do is how do you make technology personal for people? Because again, I said sales is personal, right? And so each transaction is personal, and these technologies exist today, and we just get to find them and implement them.
And this is something, so e-commerce, I mean, I just bang my head against the wall, but I do feel like we're finally making progress in helping distributors understand that the shopping cart does not measure your online benefit. That the consumer measurement is take your shopping cart and divide it into your costs. That is a completely wrong measurement in B2B. I mean, don't get me wrong, you want to take credit for those sales, but we asked 1,855 distributor customers. This is a survey we did of distributor customers in a different survey, and we asked them, when you put together an order on a distributor website, how do you actually place that order? Only 18% of the time do they go through the shopping cart. In other words, customers are buying on these websites all the time. They're just not completing the transaction on the website. And you know why? Well, there's a few reasons. One is they have a purchasing process they have to abide by. And their purchasing process is take that information, put it in a PO, send it to my boss, get approval, and email it to the distributor. That's number one by far. Okay. And then sometimes they call because they can get discounts if they call, which maybe you have to do that as a distributor, but if you do, then your website's the most expensive way to buy from you. Customers aren't stupid. They'll figure it out. They'll just make a call, talk to their buddy Bob, who gives them discounts, and they'll get discounts, right? But the website doesn't get any attribution for that, right? So, and so we've actually gone through distribution websites and figured out what's the real revenue? And typically it's 600% more than the distributor thinks. So distributors aren't investing in these technologies because they think they're not getting a return. but they're using completely the wrong measurement, which is what's going through the shopping cart. And then they conclude, oh, yeah, I can't afford to spend more on this website. It hasn't delivered for me so far. And they fall farther and farther behind on the digital curve. This is not complicated. And in fact, we can even give you a simple way to give it a better estimate. And I'm not going to go through it on this call, but we talk to distributors all the time and we say, why don't you try this to measure the real business coming through your website? And it gives you a much more accurate estimate than just the shopping cart. And do I sound frustrated, Brian? Because I'm so tired of taking this
well,
message.
this is your life's mission to get this point across. And you get most fired up when we talk about this topic. So I love watching you roll.
Well, it's just such a shame. And I've listened to all these so-called experts come in and say, your B2B site should be just like a B2C site. I'm like, what are you talking about? B2B is so much more complex and the measurement's totally different. Don't listen to those idiots. They don't know what they're talking about. Your B2B site should not be like a B2C site. And anyone who says that is misinformed or they're dumb. It's one of the two, right?
Right.
They're not the same. And this is one of the reasons sales reps get frustrated with their websites, because they're supposed to drive volume through it, but it doesn't have the capabilities for their customers to actually use it. So you're not going to get your customers to adopt a website that doesn't meet their needs. And by the way, I know I can't say who this is. I know of a very large publicly held distributor who put huge incentives for customers and account managers to buy through the website because it became important to their shareholders and they want to put in their 10K, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You know what happens? Sales reps call on customers. The customer gives them the order and the sales rep sits in the parking lot and re-enters the order.
Yes.
Right. There's a productive way to do it. Right. And it's like, who cares how it comes in? It's not your job to tell customers how to buy. If they want to phone it in, then be good at that, but figure out what the contribution of the website is along the way. I mean, if you want to enroll your account managers in supporting your digital efforts, you got to give them a digital platform that actually works for their customers. It's not that hard, right?
Yeah. Figure out how they buy and be good at that.
Right. Okay. Sorry. Rant over.
You're in at the lesson.
Okay. Let's talk about collaboration. All righty. So this is absolutely fascinating. This is maybe, I'm not sure this is the most alarming, startling, or to be expected data point in this survey, but check this out.
Probably to be expected.
Okay. All right. So give us the news on this one, Brian. What do you see?
The good news is we've got really good collaboration with our customer service team and our operations, but finance and marketing is a problem.
Especially finance. When look at those numbers.
They've been working hard at it for years, and it still shows up as a problem.
I know, boy, we hate those so-and-sos, don't we?
Yeah, I tell you what, the best organizations really, though, have a culture that says, let's play as one, right? Whether it's,
right.
I learned this from a great sales leader, William Bland at Hisco.
Yeah.
Play as one, right? Whether or not it's your
Right.
operations or service teams or internal teams. If you can't do that, you can't be on the team. So, I mean,
Right.
we've
Right.
got to be better at this, because the finance people don't wake up trying to aggravate us every day.
Right.
They wake
Right.
up doing their job and trying to help the company.
Right. Hey, Brian, my rant took us almost to the end of our time, so I'm just going to fly through these. Sorry.
Yeah.
So how our distributor sales force is evolving, investing in technology. They're upskilling with training. They're really focused on being customer-centric, which includes personalization, big priority on data analytics and digital channels and continuous learning and AI strategies. And please come to our Profit and Productivity Summit, November 11th through the 13th in Chicago. We've got an incredible lineup of speakers talking about everything from improving margins to controlling and managing cost to serve to maximizing your rebates and your co-op. And if you register by September 7th, you'll be a VIP. You can have dinner with Jonathan and me and Brian and some other speakers. You get a VIP lounge throughout the event. You get a better hotel room and a bunch of other stuff, including a wine basket in your room. So go to profitandproductivity.com and sign up for our event. And we are done. Brian, thank you so much. It's been so much fun working with you. Yeah. And we'll do it again next time. Thanks for attending, everyone. Bye now.
Take care, everybody.